What a sight it is. We grow by the year. Pretty soon, I think, if we get any bigger, we'll have to find another venue, but unfortunately that means we've got to get more sponsors. But most importantly, welcome everybody. We hope you enjoy yourself. But members and friends, in the past I've talked to you about many things. I've talked to you about industrial manslaughter, workplace bullying, sexual harassment in the workplace, but tonight I invite you to witness a chapter of AWU history in the making. 124 years ago, workers rallied down Oak Street, Balcaldon, I'll get that out eventually, Barcaldine I meant to say, in central Queensland, just an hour's drive east of Longreach, where AWU Life member Jim Doyle was raised and educated. This event is recorded as Australia's first May Day rally. Workers gathered under the original tree of knowledge, demanding a fair share of the wealth that their toils had created in the regional shearing sheds throughout Australia. Fast forward 124 years, and notwithstanding the Conservatives' view that there is no longer a class divide, we all know that struggle continues. And if you want further confirmation, I invite you to take the opportunity to talk to any of the industrial lawyers that are here this evening, and they'll put you straight. But tonight, we honour a unique AWU member, one who, to most of us here, really needs no introduction. I refer, of course, to the perpetual evergreen, Jim Doyle. Members and friends, in recent times I've had the pleasure to sit beside Jim as we celebrated our South Australian May Day. Together we drive through the streets of Adelaide in a golf buggy to soak up the atmosphere of the chanting voices of the working class. Jim enjoys the celebrations, but he hastens to point out that the band music of today may be well-meaning and effective in attracting attention, but it does not amplify the real emotion of the working class struggle. The lyrics of songs like Solidarity Forever, Jim says, make a more stirring statement. Jim was born in Rockhampton, Queensland, on 13 July 1918. As a young child, he moved with his family to Longreach, where his dad hitched up the horse teams and operated the family freight hauling business in the bush, while Jim received his early education. Leaving school at 14, Jim worked as a knockabout in outback Queensland. At age 15, he pursued his trade as a trainee shearer. In Jim's birth year, our union was just 32 years young. Today, the Australian Workers' Union boasts of 127 years of existence. Jim worked as a shearer and joined the Australian Workers' Union on 7 March 1933. In the evenings, as the sun set on the shearing sheds, Jim and his mates would sit out on the veranda and huddle around the newly mass-produced battery-powered portable wireless with some of the AWU's foundation members and their first-generation descendants. The radio reception was the shearers' only regular news source that connected them with mainstream Australia. It was during this time that Jim received his industrial and political baptism from the progressive shearers of that era. His love of the debates on the verandas and in the shearing shed dining rooms prompted Jim to pursue work up and down the eastern seaboard into Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania. Against this background, as an eager young teenager, Jim elected to join the struggle of the working class. Jim's example could be viewed as an inspiration to the young workers of today. His paradigm has demonstrated that the responsibility and ownership of the working class struggle is unrestricted and open to all ages, particularly the younger generations. As a shearer, Jim demanded his legal award entitlements from the cockies in the sheds where he worked. But most wool growers retaliated. They blacklisted Jim from their properties and forced him to pursue employment elsewhere. Eventually, his induced nomadic shearers' wandering brought him to South Australia searching for work. Nowadays, Jim has ceased those wanderings and is a permanent resident in our Adelaide community. As always, as Peter has said, he is here with us again tonight. Our special guest is unique in many respects. None the least, at 95 years of age, he is comfortably the most senior person here. It is on this score alone that he deserves our respect, principally because he already has a very significant number up on the board. Members and friends, there is no guarantee that any of us here will ever achieve similar longevity. During my discussions with Jim, he tells me that these days he doesn't have many friends his age, which is sad, but the upside, he says, is that he has outlived all of his past enemies. Like so many young Australian men of his generation, he pursued adventure by enlisting in the Australian Army, where he served 3 years active service defending our nation from invasion during World War II. Confident of his return to shearing after the war and to guarantee his AWU membership continuity, Jim had the presence of mind to have his union ticket bought and paid for each year while he was off defending our country. His foresight and determination to make it back home set the foundation to ensure that this year Jim celebrates 80 years continuous membership of the Australian Workers' Union. Members and friends, on the 7th of March 2013, the AWU has our own living membership octogenarian living within our ranks. This must be a one-off achievement for Australian unions, to say the least. And more broadly, it is unlikely to be achieved in any other country in the world. This means that there is a very real chance that we are sharing our evening with living world history. Jim has the distinction of achieving dual Australian Workers' Union life membership. He is a life member of the AWU's national body, as well as our AWU State Union. My friends, there is no greater AWU honour than that. He also has the distinction of having our AWU Port Pirie complex named in his honour, a recognition of which he is enormously proud. Jim is a past AWU South Australian branch organiser who operated in that role for a decade between 1972 and 1982. He is also a past branch vice president and a past national vice president of our union. In addition to all of this, he was nominated by the May Day Committee for an annual Silver Spanner Award. This award was presented to Jim at the 2009 May Day dinner for his contribution to the working class struggle. Like so many people born in the early 20th century, Jim has fought and experienced the struggle. It is the fighting spirit and the collective strength of the people of that era in Australia's industrial history that laid the foundation for the achievement of much of what we enjoy today. This is the generation that experienced and endured the aftermath of World War I, the full effects of the World Depression and they also fought in and survived World War II. These people are quality people. They have values, they have vision, they have wisdom. They also have heaps of loyalty and a ton of guts. Members and friends, this generation is made of the right stuff. Indicative of Jim's determination, last year, at age 94, he elected to have his second knee replacement to assist him to clock up another 100,000 kilometres. Hey, at that age, that takes some guts. Notwithstanding his seniority in years, Jim is across modern information technology and is right up to speed with the computer. He continues to be active and gets involved wherever he can. Jim produces his own editorial, The Plod, and uses it as a vehicle to agitate with his targeted, thought-provoking topics. To this extent, he gets under the skin of many, but it hopefully has the effect, he says, of precipitating the thinking of one or two people. Within the ranks of the former moderate arms of the AWU, Jim was considered to be a square peg in a round hole. But amongst the more tolerant ranks, he is elevated to a proper status of recognition where he is highly regarded and well respected. Particularly in South Australia, in our estimation, Jim is a very special Australian. He is walking, talking history of the Australian Workers' Union and the Australian industrial movement. In more recent times, Jim's union membership longevity has attracted the attention of the Australian Workers' Heritage Centre at Barcaldine. Our union is very supportive to the Heritage Centre and funded the restoration of the symbolic AWU Longreach Shearers Hall. We donated the hall to the Heritage Centre and trucked it over to Barcaldine, where it now stands as one of the principal exhibits. Chief Executive Officer Bob Gleeson has advised that a large frame photo of Jim will be displayed in a prominent place in the recently renovated AWU Shearers Hall. Attached will be a short story authored by South Australian historian Alison Murchie, acknowledging Jim Doyle's unique AWU membership history. Jim will also be named an honorary patron of the Australian Workers' Heritage Centre. Jim has talked the talk and walked the walk. He is one who provides me with an extensive first-hand account of accurate history of the AWU, complete with names, dates and times. He's incredible. To this extent, I want to thank him for sharing the stories and experience, and I also commend Alison Murchie for taking the time to record many hours of valuable interviews with Jim. He is an inspiration to all generations. Jim stood shoulder to shoulder with the workers from a very early age and has stuck with the workers ever since. He is a living example to all of us that the continuing working class struggle is open to all generations. Jim, you are an agitator, you are an educator, and you are an organiser. Thank you indeed for your valued personal friendship and selfless contribution to ordinary working Australians. May you enjoy continuing longevity. Members and friends, at this point I'll come down off the stage to join Jim and AWU National Secretary Paul Howes. So please stay and join us in acknowledging Jim Doyle as living AWU history while we present him with a certificate of recognition for achieving 80 continuous years and counting of AWU membership. Members and friends, Jim Doyle.
There isn't much that I can say. Right. There isn't such a lot that I can say now. I think Wayne has given me a very good going over. And of course, in the 80 years that I've had, there's been many struggles in the Australian Workers' Union in which I have participated. And I'm very happy to be able to say that when Wayne stood for the position of Secretary of the Australian Workers' Union, back about 1982, I think it was, I was very keen and very determined to support Wayne for that position, because the AWU at that time was going through a very perilous time with its union leaders in the South Australian branch. And it was a great pleasure on my part to participate in that struggle and to be successful in having Wayne elected as the Secretary of the South Australian branch. And I think I can say, without any contradiction, that had Wayne not won that position, the position of the South Australian branch of the Australian Workers' Union would be a very, very poor state at this time. It may not have survived. So I am quite happy to say those few words in support of Wayne, and I hope that he carries on in the same vein in the future. Now, getting back to my early days, I believe that I was impressed by the attitude of those early shearers in the 1930s that formed, and in some cases had been at the formation of the Australian Workers' Union. But even those workers at that time had very distinct ideas as to what was the objective and what was the aim of the organised workers. Now, we have gone through some bad patches since, but I believe that we will now be reaching a stage where the Australian working class, not only the Australian Workers' Union, but the Australian working class as a whole, will begin to assess their position and as to where we are going. Are we prepared to go on tolerating periods of boom and depression, or are we going to set out to build a society and where we are going to continually improve our position in society? That is what I believe should be our objective and our aim, and I believe that that is what will come to pass in the future. Now, that is about all I can say.
Well done, Jim. Well done, mate. Congratulations. We'll help you down.
Okay, all good.